Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. Wanted to talk a little more Star Frontiers, if I can. You may have noticed I haven't done a lot of videos lately, and the reason is I had a bad cold, and I've talked about that already. And I'm better now, but my voice is still a bit rough. So if I clear my throat a few times, I apologize for that. I think I'm on the mend, so I thought, well, let's at least do a little story time thing here and talk some Star Frontiers. Primarily, I wanted to talk about these, which are the metal figurines, the little lead miniatures that Dungeons & Dragons is famous for and a lot of other tabletop games. Yes, Star Frontiers itself had them too. Little side note, I was always very jealous. The DM we had for our Dungeons & Dragons group was awesome at painting these figures. I mean, we would go and buy them, and he would paint them, and they would look amazing. And I was always like, well, I can never do anything on par with that. In fact, side note again, I usually played the cleric when I was playing D&D, and I found the perfect cleric lead figurine one day in a shop, bought it, and said to the DM, hey, can you paint this guy, because this is awesome. And he was like, well, actually, I've got a whole pile of figures that I'm doing right now, so I'll get to it eventually. And I remember once being at his place, and I took this figure, and I kind of took it from the shelf where all the unpainted ones were, and I set it on his table, and next thing I knew, he painted it. So I kind of maybe got that lead figure painted on my behalf with a little sneaky move, because I was no good at painting. Then I started up Star Frontiers. Now, I've already talked about in my last video how we actually moved little paper cutouts on the board. And this board that I have back here behind the figure boxes is kind of similar. So I just thought I'd use that as a little space age backdrop. But when we elevated up to actually using figurines, we used a larger battle mat. Now, let me just show you. These are awesome boxed sets, and I've still got them. I love the artwork on these. And that's for kind of spacefarers. This is a more basic player character one. And love the cover art there for robots. But I can't really show you what's inside here because these are all actually just empty boxes. What I've done is, maybe that's to their benefit. They've actually maintained fairly good condition. And yeah, maybe that's why these boxes seem to be in such good state, is that the figurines themselves have actually moved out of here. That's a little spare piece of styrofoam I've got. Also, before I show you why these boxes are empty and where the figures are, it's actually confession time. I've been using these boxes for a purpose that you have all been benefiting from, and you wouldn't really think it to know it. Let me just do a thing that's going to be a bit jarring here. I'm actually taking the camera off the tripod that I normally use, and when I'm actually filming stuff, I sometimes use these boxes to hold up the tripod. In fact, because they're exactly the right dimensions there. And particularly if anytime you're watching any of my Vectrex videos, what you've got is the camera is sitting on top of the tripod, and then the tripod is sitting there filming the Vectrex. These boxes are actually acting as an absolutely perfect place for me to hold the camera up. So big thanks to the Star Frontiers boxes themselves. They've actually been serving a really great purpose all this time, and you have benefited from them without really realizing it. Now, let me get the camera back on its tripod, and then I want to show you where these figures are. So here are my actual Star Frontiers figures. These are these Dungeons & Dragons boxed things that you can actually carry around your figures in, which is better for portability, and you can carry a heck of a lot more figures. There they are there. There's a couple of layers of these guys, and I'll show you some of the good ones, some of the bad ones. Oh, hardly ever painted any of those guys. And also my biggest mistake with these figures. But let me see. I think the very first one that I ever did, if he's here, where is he? There he is. The very first figure I painted was this little Dralicite guy right here. Oh, oops, my finger's in the way. There you go. Can you make him out? Yeah, there he is. Because he's real basic and real simple. He's mostly gray, got a weird looking gun, a couple of eyes, and a bit of equipment and a nice base. So that was the first figure I ever tried doing, and actually turned out pretty decently. So I thought, well, since that's gone okay, and there's no way my Dungeons & Dragons painting master DM guy is going to do these for me, let's try a few more. So I actually went through and I painted all these guys. I've got another Dralicite in a spacesuit that I'm rather happy that turned out. Let me see if I can find probably the best Yuzarian figure that I did there. Is it going to focus? Possibly. Yeah, it's better. So he turned out pretty nice. I like how that one went. Is it in focus? Yeah, I think it's in focus. There we go. Got us a human with some kind of a gun there. That turned out okay. And a spacesuit. This one actually ended up really well. I actually tried doing some layering of the, like, I don't know if it's coming out there, but sort of you do a dark green on the background and then you do a light green over it. I don't know if you can make out that pouch of his. That's sort of a good example of that. I'm really happy. A very sort of first Alien film spacesuit inspired there. Ever in favor of diversity, had humans of all different types in my game. Speaking of guys in spacesuits, there's a Yuzarian in a spacesuit. Very, very baggy, years before MC Hammer made those big pants so popular. One Sathar figure that I've got another one that didn't look quite as nice. This one turned out pretty decent, though I think the very, very basic red color, I don't know, makes it look a bit cartoony, I think. And I guess it's time to show you my mistake. Here's a Vrusk. Not too bad how he turned out. But my biggest mistake was, if anybody has looked at any Star Frontiers artwork, the Vrusks are not blue. And let me show you why I painted this guy blue by mistake. If we look in the manual, in the description of how the Vrusks are, it says actually quite clearly, young Vrusk have a blue carapace with a bright orange near the joints. As the Vrusk gets older, its carapace changes to dull green with yellow joints. I read that backwards. I thought they were green when they were young and blue as they matured. So unfortunately, that's why any Vrusks that I painted, like this guy with a laser rifle, I mistakenly made them blue. So that was my hiccup. And it was actually one of my players who was looking at the description and who looked at the figure. He said, why are all your Vrusks blue? Does that mean they're all like 12 years old? So that was my mistake. And under here are essentially a whole bunch more. I've got one robot that I did, the one off the cover of that book, of that box set there. Don't think I'll ever get to any of these other figures. And there's the other Sathar. Not too happy with how that one looks. Now, there are a variety of aliens in here, but for me to explain them, I need to explain more about my Star Frontiers campaign. So I'm going to kind of leave my figures at that stage, put them back in their box, and show you the other Star Frontiers box sets that I've got. I got quite a few of them back in the day. These are all the spaceships for Nighthawks. These are privateers, but unfortunately there's only one figure in there, and he is an Osakar, which is in the Zebulon's Guide to Frontier Space. I will describe those guys when I get to that book. Here are the ships of the Sathar. Ooh, man, they have settled over time. But you can see, no, that's a Federation ship. Let's see, can I even pull these out? Yeah, these ones actually needed to be assembled and glued together. There's like the undercarriage, so you've got little pins here, and you would actually attach it and glue it all together like that, and then you'd put the pylons on. So this is kind of a very, very complex bunch of lead figurines to make these various Sathar ships. And just for completion, here's the last one, the Federation ships, the good guys. Oh, it's even got a rule book. I forgot about that. So you have a variety of UPF ships here. A couple of Star Trek ships have made their way into my collection. There's a Romulan warbird there from the original series. There's a frigate. Ooh, he's got a bent nose. Oh well. And there is the Assault Scout, which is kind of the main ship of Star Frontiers. I mean, let's get the focus right. You see any artwork and stuff, it's always talking about the Assault Scout. So there are my Star Frontiers figurines and various ships. And it was actually an interesting experience for me to learn how to paint. Had I not been kind of forced by my DM to say, hey, if you want to get these things painted, why don't you paint them yourself? I never would have taken up the brush, and I think I did an okay job. I mean, I've been very pleased with the end results. Haven't seen these things for years since the last time we played, so it was kind of cool just to bring them out and show them all to you guys. I hope you like that. There'll be more Star Frontiers soon. I've got to get my voice back together, though. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.